Sorry.
I hear now. Oh,
We can. There's an echo. May echo.
we are echoing.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Nico. All right. So, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Maverick M. De Castro, but you can just call me Mavi. I'm a member of Develop. And yes, good afternoon to everyone. I would like to start by thanking everyone here. And to be honest, our team was really surprised by the number of registrants. And it really makes our hearts happy to see all of you. Goes to show how big gaming has become. And with that said, this makes it even more important for us to familiarize ourselves with the systems present in these media so that we will be able to make the best decisions. So some of you might already be familiar with some of these already, especially if you know the terms or have already bought, for example, skins in like Valorant or League of Legends, or perhaps hold for your favorite character in Genshin Impact. And today, we will go in depth into how each of these work, and we hope that you will walk away from this webinar with a clearer understanding on how monetization works in video games. So this is the price of play, rampant monetization in the gaming industry. So with that, our flow for today will be, first we'll tackle what monetization is. We'll talk about live service operations. We'll talk about how monetization becomes exploitative, because monetization in itself, it's something needed for the industry to function. And of course, the current state of monetization in the Philippines. And lastly is, what are the action points? What can we do once we learn all of this? So of course, with the outline, our goals from that is first to learn the common types of monetization and how it affects us as consumers, to know what are live service operations, to know the current state of the monetization of games in the Philippine industry, and of course, to be aware of the predatory monetization practices utilized by various organizations. And before we proceed, I would like to tell everyone, there's been a lot of emails asking that we will be providing certificates, even for those who are on YouTube. So hello to all who are viewing on YouTube and to those who are on Zoom. So thank you very much for attending. So we'll be posting a link that you can answer so that you'll be able to get a certificate. So we'll be posting that later by the end of the webinar. And also, if you have any questions regarding logistics, feel free to message me or any of the other co-hosts, those with the label develop on their names. And yeah, and the small reminder pala for the certificate link, please, as proof that you attended the webinar, please take a selfie with the Zoom screen. If you are conscious, like nakita yung selfie, yung mukha nyo, I think it's okay naman if it's just your hand and in the screen. But yeah, just proof that you attended the webinar. Yes. So ayun, enough of me rambling. So it's time for me to introduce the speaker. Yes. So our speaker for today is Nicolo Genvino. He is a member of Develop, and he is a game dev and programmer and has worked mainly on game jam games in the past. So game jams are basically marathons wherein you do games within 1 to 2 days or even as long as 2 weeks or months. And then last is, of course, Nico is also an aspiring artist and composer. So I'm gonna stop sharing now, and I would like to give the floor to Nico.
All right. Okay. Let me get this set up here. I can't see the share screen button. It's just small. There you go. There. Okay. So I'm just confirm that everyone can see the screen here, the slides here.
Yep, I can see it on my end.
All right, good. Let's get started. So we're going to be talking about the monetization of the video game industry. The talk is aptly titled "The Price of Play." So first of all, what is monetization? we're going to go over that. So monetization is defined as the act or process of making income from something that would otherwise not generate revenue. So this is something that normally, as a concept, does not generate revenue on its own. So if you say talk about food sales, restaurants, services, banking, etc. These things, at their core, are services that you pay for. So these are technically not monetization, since you are designed to pay for them as a concept. So what like monetization would be something like maybe paying to see a play, since by selling tickets, right? You buy a ticket to a play. The concept of a play does not inherently generate revenue. This idea is sort of a little bit vague, and technically a lot of things are monetized, since money and paying for services is a concept that people invented anyway. So, but in this case, since we're talking about video games, this is the monetization of video games, paying for things in video games. So let's go over history of monetization. Obviously, the first systems for monetization were arcades. These are the classic arcade cabinets. You put a coin in, and you get one play session for your coin. These days, you can still find them. You go to a time zone, you swipe your card on the reader, you get one session of play at your choice of game, like basketball, those basketball games in time zone, those ball drop, those wheels, etc. And so, but the arcades were the first form of monetization. These are really old things like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, etc. After that, we had console and retail games. So these are your games such as The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers. These are the things that you would buy from a store in a cartridge or disc. So NES games, SNES games, Sega Genesis, PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, etc. So these are the games that you buy outright as a one-time purchase. Then after that, as more and more consoles became connected to the internet, we saw the rise of things like DLC and expansion packs. Expansion packs as a concept actually existed before that. It would be an additional CD or disc that you would buy, typically for a video game, for a PC game. You would buy the video game, and then later on they would release like a second disc containing an expansion pack that you could also pay for. And then you would stick that in your computer and it would install the additional data. The development of that was DLC, where instead of buying a second disc, you would download the content. That's what DLC means. It means downloadable content. You would get the data from the internet after paying for it through whatever storefront you were using. After that, in the era of smartphones and app stores, in-app purchases became very popular. This is where you pay for things within the app itself. So you're not buying an expansion for the content, externally from a storefront or a brick and mortar store, which is like a physical place you go to. So we're no longer buying expansion discs. We're no longer buying expansion packs. We're no longer buying DLC stories and campaigns. We're buying smaller things like extra energy, extra resources, characters, weapons. These are known as microtransactions. And you also buy things like the ability to remove ads from your mobile games, and so on and so forth. One of the more popular forms of microtransactions in the around 2010 to 2020 period of games were loot boxes. These would be little drops of items and resources that you would get at random. So you would buy a loot box, the content of it would be random, and then you would buy more of them, you would earn them through gameplay, etc. These are like your Kinder eggs. I don't know if that's what they're called these days, but there are those little hidden bag things in like toy stores that you can still buy these days. They're still popular, I think. And We also have battle passes and subscription-based models. If you know World of Warcraft, so you'll know that subscription-based models are actually very, very old relative to battle passes. So you would buy a subscription to World of Warcraft, or even to something like I think something like RuneScape. You could subscribe to. There was a fee that you could pay every so often for extra privileges in the game and stuff like RuneScape and other MMOs. So subscriptions were very common for MMOs. In fact, Final Fantasy 14 is still subscription based. World of Warcraft is still subscription based. Those are the two big examples of that. And of course, there are battle passes. These are sort of like seasonal. This is like seasonal extra content that you pay that if you want you can pay a fee for. And since battle passes are seasonal, it's also sort of a subscription to extra content. Typically, in a lot of battle pass games, sometimes you don't have to pay for the game itself, so the base game is free, but this extra content from the battle pass you do have to pay for. So if you want to keep getting the extra content, you are essentially paying a subscription in that sense. So what does it look like these days? So monetization these days, there's a lot of different models in play. Most of them I already mentioned. So premium game is just the new word for retail games because of the rise of free to play. Ever since free to play became like a really big thing already in the modern landscape, we sort of just started calling retail games by premium games, since there's also models where you get a free version of a game and then you can pay to have additional content, pay once to have additional content. That would be like a premium purchase for a free game. Microtransactions, I already mentioned, these are like your in-app purchases. You have in-game ads. This is where advertisers pay developers to show ads in the games themselves. You'll most likely see this with mobile games, the ones that have little banners at the bottom that show you some ad for something that you may or may not want. Depends on how much the market is tracking you. But this can also come in the form of sort of like product placement or endorsements. If you think about like maybe the FIFA games, they sometimes have real products in the sort of game setting. This, kind of like how you would see advertisements from Coke or other brands, cigarette brands, etc., in a real football match. Loot boxes, as I mentioned, are still a thing. They're regulated in some parts of the world, but they're still a thing. Subscriptions and battle passes, I already mentioned. There is also something called play to earn. I'll go over this later. This is a fairly complicated topic, and even later I'm going to gloss over it. But there's a concept called play to earn, where the entire idea is that you play the video game to earn money. It's not easy to explain quickly. And then there's also crowdfunding and early access for development. This is where you have people paying for the game either like in its early stages of development or before the game is even like available to the public in any form. So that's a lot of models. So why do developers even do any of this? And the simple answer is because it costs money to make games. No matter who you ask, it costs money to make games. You have to pay people to do the work. You have to pay you have to pay employees, you have to pay salaries, you pay contracts. And games these days are a business. Game development is a very, very large business in today's world. So as production values for games go up, and production values sort of increase and decrease for different sectors of the game industry, but the production value entails that the developers want to make their money back from the game. So that's why they monetize the game, to have a source of income, to allow them to continue to support the game and make it better, and also to allow them to fund future projects. That's one of the main things. So, and also to get paid, eat food, keep the lights on, not starve to death, and all the other necessities of life for developers that do this thing as a full-time job. So lots of games have monetization schemes, but one of the probably the most common form of game to have a monetization is what's called a live service game or live service operation. So what is that? So live service games or games as a service is essentially where the developer continues to support the game after its release. So these are games that are regularly updated, constantly supported with patches, bug fixes, balance changes, and in general, they're all designed to keep the player playing the game as long as possible. And since they're typically monetized in some way, that means they're also designed to keep the player playing and paying for things as much as possible. So what are some good examples of live service games? Pretty much anything that requires you to have an internet connection, frankly. So some of you probably play something like League of Legends or one of its mobile variants like Wild Rift or something similar like Mobile Legends. Those are live service games because you connect to the game servers, and the service of the game servers, the ones where you play your matches and fight, is provided to you as a service. Yes. And the game is up, and those games are updated with new content and balance changes to keep you playing and to keep competitive scenes running. So that's an example of games as a service. There's also obviously games like Fortnite with seasonal content, regular changes, the game service again. World of Warcraft and other MMOs are live service games, since the act of connecting to a server to interact with other people is a service in of itself. It's sort of like being provided with a space to meet friends. It's like a mall almost, if you think about it like that, like malls as a service kind of. And then you have some less obvious examples like GTA 5, which you might not think is a live service game, but however, I'm not sure if it's still being supported, but it was supported for a very long time past its release. You had stuff like the new heists that came out every once in a while. You had new vehicles, new weapons, and other updates that came to the game, as well as GTA 5 Online. And then very old example of live service, as in the game is very old, is Warframe. Live service is Warframe kind of is a very good example of the live service model because it exemplifies the part of live service that allows games to improve over time. If you look at Warframe back when it released around 2013, it was around the time of the PS3, the PS3's popularity. It is a very different game to modern Warframe, to what it looks like today. So that's an example of how live service games change over time. That's the idea of constant support that I talked about. So why do games go live service? As I mentioned, they can be improved over time. They can be balanced over time, especially for more competitive games. And money comes in constantly, as opposed to when you have a one-time purchase or sort of 2 times with expansion packs, right? And Valorant new champions are called agents, but yes, Valorant also is a live service game because you get new maps, you get new agents, balance changes, and your connection to the servers and all that. And also live service games also have a unique advantage where players don't really players, especially these days, like a lot of people don't always expect the fully polished and released game when it comes out. When it's a live service game, there's a lot of leeway for fixing things that might happen during development. So that generally results in a shorter development time before release. So the games can come out faster, and anything that's broken can just be fixed later. That's sort of the way that a lot of publishers see it, I think. So what form of monetization can you expect to find in live service games? Well, the kind of big 4 right now are subscriptions. Again, see Final Fantasy 14 and World of Warcraft. You have battle pass models. This is like actually a lot of games have battle passes in one way or another, and it's a very common monetization scheme because of its like ease of implementation, since it's not necessarily new content relative to the base game. So you have things like Valorant with its episodic battle passes or act-based battle passes, kind of seasonal battle passes. You have Fortnite. That's the big one that popularized the entire model. Its battle pass is very, very well known. I think even some games like I think even stuff like Apex Legends. I'm not sure if PUBG has one. It might. Stuff like COD Mobile, and so on have battle passes that encourage you to keep playing and coming back, and maybe spend a little money on the battle pass, spend a little money on something else, stuff like that. Another very popular model of monetization that you'll be very familiar with is the gacha model. This is based on a real thing that from Japan, where you have like a little machine that you put like a couple hundred yen into. You put like 200 yen, 300 yen into, and you turn a knob and you get a little egg, right? You get a little capsule with something random inside. Essentially, you get, it's like a little loot box for like some kind of franchise that's like shown on the front of the machine. So that's where that comes from. It's essentially you randomize a whole bunch of drops, and usually in gacha model video games, they are sort of core aspects to the game. So if you've played Genshin Impact, Honkai Impact, it's the characters and the weapons, as you might know. In lots of other games, there's sort of like a gacha style model for skins. That's sort of how the old Overwatch 1 loot boxes worked. And in general, stuff like Grand Blue Fantasy, where you roll for characters, it's usually characters and weapons. That's the main two things that you see in the gacha game that you pull for. And yes, because in Japan, if you look at a lot of those capsule machines, it's usually characters from franchises, or like like mascots of stuff. So you have like little Kirby gacha machines where you get like either Kirby's like sitting down, Kirby's sleeping, he's flying up somewhere, or you get like a little pin of Kirby, stuff like that. And then the other main monetization that you'll see, which is technically all of these are the fourth one, is microtransactions. These are, as I mentioned before, these are the small transactions that you pay for in-game with real money. So these are your extra resources. You buy like 100 energy for 50 pesos or something like that. I don't know if a game does it like that. Or you buy premium currency with real money, and you buy weapons, you buy skins, you buy Valorant skins, you buy League skins. Those are all microtransactions. You can also buy stuff like EXP boosters in a lot of games. There's a lot. There's a lot of different microtransactions in games, because it encompasses every single type of in-app transaction that you can make. So I mentioned that monetization is very important to modern game development, because we have to keep the lights on at the studio and at home, right? So developers want to make money. Developers need to make money in order to keep making games. But there are some developers and publishers that take it a little too far, and that's when the monetization becomes exploitative. So what are ways? So I'm going to show you a few ways that monetization can become exploitative. And these are examples that you might already know, or you might not be familiar with, but I'll try to explain them as best I can. So let's start with something. On the design side, or on the user experience side, where it's exploiting sort of like our visual patterns. So we have like something like an excessive storefront. This is similar to when you walk into a mall and you go into the department store and you see there's like signs for sales everywhere, like everything is on sale. It's similar to that, this excessive storefronts. So if you look on the right, you can see Cookie Run Kingdom. This is a screenshot of the store page, and you could, on the left, essentially is all the different promotions You can see about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see about 8 of them here. They're all for stuff that you pay with premium currency or you buy with real money. And that's not even all of them. That list goes on for like 2 more heights of the screen. That's only a third of all of the options that show up. So that's a lot of things. And they're all filled with this sort of like brightly colored, flashy nonsense that like this, and the big green buy button that just, it's trying to get you to spend your currency and your money. Which I guess you can hardly blame them for, since they're trying to get the money out of you. But yes, this is very excessive. There's a lot of things here that are just designed to confuse you. There's a daily bonus that you can get in this game, and it's buried like 2/3 of the way down this list. So it's designed to confuse you into just looking through all of these promotions that you're like, oh, I can buy this, I can buy that. And so on the other hand, you have very simple. On the other hand, a non-excessive storefront would be something that's very simple, very concise. You look on the left here is this is a Limbus Company's store page. This is the sort of like the main area you do all of the. This is pretty much the only place where you interact with your premium currency, right? So this is the store page. There you can see 3 things. You can see an event banner. You can see a sort of like a character banner, and you see a regular banner. That's it. That's all you see. You see 3 buttons for pulling for your pulls, and that's it. That's all you see. Your currency is down here, and there's not even an option. You don't even see an option to spend real money on the screen. You have to click on the Lunacy button on this Lunacy window down here to pull up a pop-up that lets you buy Lunacy, which is the premium currency of the game. So the storefront here is simply showing you what is available to pull at this moment, right? It's not even showing you the battle pass, which this game does have a battle pass. It doesn't even show it to you here, because you have to go to the window of the battle pass itself to see the option to buy the battle pass. It's not even listed in the store page. If I noticed that we're only 21 minutes in, and I'm pretty far in. So if I'm going too fast, you can hit there's a react on Zoom to let me know to slow down if I'm going too fast. And if you have any questions, you can send them in the Canva, and I think we'll have some time after the slides to go over them. So moving on, we have what I like to call over monetized and unfinished games, right? This is a big problem with live service games and early access in particular. Early access being where early access is basically when you get a game, when you can buy a game from a developer in very early stages of development. So it's like not even like halfway done usually. So the games aren't even halfway done at that point usually. And what tends to happen a lot is that games like that sometimes never get finished, or they get finished and it's not really that good, and when you were expecting it to be a lot better. So in terms of over monetized games, which I like to define as a game being monetized but not having the game to justify the monetization, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but there are a lot of unfinished games that get monetized, and they're over monetized usually when the game is never finished, essentially. So an example of this would be like the Marvel's Avengers game. I haven't heard any news about this. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember much about this game because I haven't heard any news about it in like the last year, which is a problem because when the game released, it was barely finished. It's not what you would call a $60 game, right? It was not like 100% finished on release. The game had very little content. It wasn't very balanced. the gameplay loop wasn't very good. It was rather tedious and boring. And not to say boring, but it was tedious. It was definitely tedious. And yet, they threw in as many microtransactions as you might find in maybe one of the new Assassin's Creed games. That sound right? It's like if you buy it's like if you buy you buy like a table from IKEA or something. That's a bad example. It's like if you buy a car and like when you go inside, half the seats are missing and they're charging you like half the price of the car to get the rest of the seats. It's like that, yeah. That's the best example I can think of. It's unfinished games that they're asking you to pay for, and then they're asking for more money to make the game less boring to play. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound right to me, because when you publish a game, you are supposed to publish a video game, the complete video game. It can be bad. Bad games are fine, but being a bad game does not give you but being a bad game and asking for more money on top of your base price is a kind of a thing you shouldn't be doing as a developer. Yeah, I decided to stop supporting it, made every microtransaction. Okay, there. That's a good turn that they decided to take, where they outright said that they're not supporting it and made everything free. That's a good route to take. That's a good route to take if you do not plan on supporting the game. I respect that decision, but still a shame. And especially those for people who paid for microtransactions on release, because not only is the game no longer going to be supported, so it's not going to get any better. Now they've essentially just wasted their money. And well, if they had fun, then by all means, more power to them. But if they didn't have fun, then that just makes it worse. That just makes it even more tragic. For a good example of a game that's not exactly finished, but that is A, not exactly finished, B, has monetization, but C, isn't trying to rob you, we have Deep Rock Galactic, Rock and Stone, everybody. I'm sorry. Deep Rock Galactic, Rock and Stone. So the thing with Deep Rock Galactic is that what's it called again? Coffee Stain? I forgot the studio's name. The Coffee Stain Studios, yeah. They have a very good roadmap for Deep Rock. So A, they're doing better at supporting the game. B, the microtransactions are smaller. In fact, I don't think I even saw the option for it when I was playing. I play some Deep Rock at some point, and I actually don't even remember seeing a storefront, a real money storefront for the game. The other shops don't count because you use in-game currency for those. But yeah, because the game is being actively supported, the microtransactions are less intrusive, and published by Coffee Stain. Yeah, okay, yeah. And also the game is better. Controversial topic, I know. But yeah, that's what I would call it. It's monetized fairly for how much game is there, because there's a lot of game. The game is good, and the monetization is fairly. It's fairly like forgiving for the player, since you don't really even need to interact with it to play the game. So next, another thing that that developers and publishers can sometimes exploit is something called dark patterns. These are patterns of human behavior that human behavior and biases that sometimes are exploited for corporate gain, profits, etc. One of these things you might know is FOMO, fear of missing out. And this is most visible in a lot of battle pass systems, and especially seasonal content. So, you boot up Valorant, you look at the battle pass, and there's all these really nice skins on the battle pass. You got the Polyfrog Marshal, you got like the top attack skins from this battle pass, and there's always the nice cards, all the funny titles and stuff. What the hell did this go? Sorry, something just fell down. Sorry. And the idea is that they're trying to goad you into buying it, because once the battle pass is gone, that's it. All the content that's in the battle pass is gone forever. You can't ever get it again. I think. I'm not sure if the skins show up in the shop, but that's beside the point. There's also visible in games like Fortnite, where seasonal content is gone forever after the battle pass season, etc. I'd argue about the Warframe Prime Vault. Yeah. Actually, I should note that all the stuff on the left is sort of like counterexample to the point. So, so Warframe is a thing that avoids giving people FOMO, right? So Warframe system is one that avoids giving people FOMO, and Valorant's Battle Pass is one that tries to give people FOMO. Does that make sense? I don't know if I've laid that out right. So yes, a lot of battle passes, and if you play Genshin, the events are especially egregious when it comes to FOMO, because a lot of the events have like gameplay content that's not present anywhere else in the game, and a lot of gameplay content that should just be part of the game. So by putting it in a limited time event, they're trying to goad you back into playing the game, because you'll miss out on the event and all the fun stuff, all the rewards, primo gems and all that, to get your pulls and all that. So they're trying to goad you back in with a limited time event that's designed to sort of like pull you in with the fear of missing out. And as a counterexample to this, you have the Warframe Prime system, right? So it's a bit of a long topic, but essentially there are limited time Prime Warframes, which are like upgraded shinier versions of your characters, right? That you can get within a limited period. So the way that it works is that you earn a relic, and then you open the relic to get a thing, and sometimes it's a part of one of the Prime Warframes or weapons that are available at the time. So because of the number of Warframes and weapons that are Prime Warframes and weapons that are available, some of them are pulled in and out of rotation, right? So when an item is pulled out of rotation, it's vaulted, right? It's called vaulting the item. So there are vaulted Warframes that you can't get just by playing, that you can't earn the relics for, so you can't get the box that contains the parts anymore, right? So they're no longer available from the game itself. But the way that Warframe sets it up is that Warframes come back. Prime Warframes that are vaulted can come back in Prime Vault events, where they're available in somewhat more concentrated value, in a somewhat more concentrated way, for a limited time. So it still induces a little bit of FOMO, but it's not as bad as the thing being gone forever, since you can still get it again when the vault comes around, when the Prime Vault comes around. So you can earn them again. You can buy the vault bundles, which contain the Warframe weapons that are part of that series. And if you don't want to do either of those things, you can actually trade with other players to get relics and parts for these Prime Warframes. So they're technically always available. They're always available in one way or another. If they're not available in rotation, they might be available in the Vault event. If they're not available in the Vault event, they might be available in a Resurgence, which is even a different event where you get them a different way. And if they're not available in any of those three, you can just trade for them with other players. The price will vary between Warframe depending on how long ago they were released, and how many are still in and how many of the parts and relics are still in circulation. But you can still get them if you earn up the platinum trading, or you buy some platinum. You can earn them. Another thing that developers can sometimes exploit is the desire to win, essentially. So I'm talking about pay to win games where money equals power, essentially. So you pay more, you do better, you get more wins, you get more stats, you get bigger numbers. A lot of gacha games and a lot of MMOs and a lot of older, especially MMOs, fall into this. I have Mabinogi listed here on the right, shown here on the right, because that's one I played a few years ago. I stopped, but it's one of the few MMOs that I would say I enjoy. But it is very pay to win because a lot of the new stuff that you have to pay for typically comes in gachapon things. So you have to pay for gachapon that has new items in it. A lot of those are very powerful, right? Like some of the strongest items in the game come from gachapons, and you have to pay for those, or trade with somebody else to get them, which is not cheap gold wise, which is the Indian currency. So what ends up happening is if you buy the gachapons, you have a significant advantage over people who don't buy the gachapons, because the items in the gachapon are extremely powerful. These are like weapons, armors, and like pets that have very powerful effects. So they significantly boost your power level and allow you to play more of the game, do harder content, etc. On the opposite side of this, you have highly competitive games. So things like League of Legends and League of Legends, Valorant in a way, some fighting games, and lots of fighting games actually, and shooters, competitive shooters, other competitive shooters like Apex, Call of Duty, things like that, where the game isn't balanced around how much money you spend on it, or like the money does not have a large influence or cannot have an influence over how much power you have. So because in League of Legends, since all the champions are balanced sort of like to be on the same playing field, any new champion that comes out, that's where it's easier to get them with real money, well, theoretically shouldn't be any more powerful by a significant margin than any of the existing champions that you might already own. Obviously, in practice, new champions come out that are broken all the time, and they get balanced later after a bunch of people buy them up for those easy wins, and then everyone's a little mad. But in theory, that's not supposed to happen. So in theory, these games where that are highly competitive are supposed to be balanced around everybody, not just people who spend money. So in Valorant, you can pay for agents, but typically they won't be broken on their own. Typically, and they're always being balanced to sort of like bring everybody in line with each other. On release, sometimes agents are broken. When Chamber came out, he was an absolute nightmare. I think even like Viper too. I think I'm not sure if Viper's release was very contentious for her balance, but they try to bring everybody in line so that at least later on in the lifespan, you don't have to buy. None of the agents are over time more powerful than the others by a significant margin. So you're not forced into like paying for new agents or champions in order to win, right? Of course, this can still backfire. If any of you play Smash Ultimate, since it's exactly. I was about to talk about Steve. So if you play Smash Ultimate, since it's in its sort of like it's already in its perpetual state, since there's no more balance patches as far as I can tell. Steve is one of the strongest, if not the strongest character in Smash Ultimate, and he's DLC. So if you want to play him in tournament, you have to practice with him, and if you want to practice with him at home, you have to shell out the money to buy him. Steve has so much like powerful tech that he's actually banned in some tournaments, I think. I would say that all the DLC characters are broken than any of the base characters. That's not entirely true. Pikachu's a base character, so Pikachu's a base game, so it's debatable. Yes, but it's definitely debatable. A lot of the DLC characters are pretty broken, or like they were broken on release. Oh, Bayonetta. Let's not talk about Bayonetta. Anyway, a lot of games will also attempt to abuse other things, like like addictions basically. So these are like gambling addictions or some other form of exploitable behavior. The prime example of this is Roblox, and the reason I say Roblox is because it's similar to CS:GO's sort of like very gambling heavy case system, where you basically have to open a bunch of loot boxes for like shiny knife with a blue color on it, 100% or something like that, and like that's already bad, right? It's worse because Roblox is for kids, or lots of kids play Roblox, so they're more susceptible to these sorts of psychological tricks that try to get them to spend their money, or more accurately, their parents' money, on the game to get shiny items or rare items that are really expensive. Another form of this are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of gacha games. So that's everything from Arc Knight to Girls Frontline, I think it's called, Genshin Impact, Honkai Impact. The list goes on. A lot of these games are designed to exploit people's love for characters to give them abysmal drop rates and squeeze a lot of money out of people. So if you've ever like shelled out a lot of money on a limited time banner for like Venti or whatever, I haven't played Genshin in a while, then you may have been afflicted with MiHoYo's love for making people gamble. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Warframe. Again, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit, I'm slightly digital extremes shill here. That's a lie. I'm just a digital extreme shill. It's not slightly. I just am. So there's a great interview on Warframe by Noteclip. You can find it on YouTube. And in part 2, I believe, they talk about Sheldon here, pictured here. Sheldon talks about how at one point they made a sort of like a randomizer system for a pet cat system, right? So you have like a cat, right? And it has like a randomized appearance where it has, different shape of the ears, different shape of the tail, different physiques, right? And at one point, they put in a system that let you randomize the appearance for a price, right? And then you would be able to take that appearance and you would be able to send it to your friend. You could trade it to somebody for some platinum, or you could just give it to your friend so that they can make a nice cat. And what he says, and this is a direct quote, is somebody pulled the lever like 200 times. So they had essentially made a slot machine. And what did they do when they found out that somebody pulled the lever 200 times and that they made a slot machine? Instead of just letting it run its course until somebody found out and probably making a whole lot of money, honestly, they shelved it. They immediately rolled it back, and they took out the slot machine entirely. Now, if you want like a new Kavat like appearance, you just have to get another Kavat like the normal way, right? And so that's an example of like somebody actively choosing not to exploit your customer, which is sadly rare in this day and age. So that being said, what does it look like in the Philippines? So let's talk about the games industry in the Philippines. So the Philippines has a fairly large game industry market. It was noted about $1.26 billion in 2020. A lot of this is free to play. Most of the market is free to play, and a lot of it is mobile gaming because not everybody has like a gaming computer in the Philippines, or even like a computer good enough to play something like Valorant or League. But you walk around on the street, pretty much everybody has a smartphone. Like nearly everybody has a smartphone. Even kids have smartphones in their hands when they're like 8, which is wild to think about. So in general, mobile gaming is significantly more accessible to Filipino gamers than other forms such as console or PC. And again, a lot of these are free-to-play games. These are very popular in the mobile market. So the top 10 most downloaded games in 2019 were all free-to-play games. I don't know the exact list, but you can probably already think of at least 3 games that you play or that others people play on your phone, even that are free-to-play games, right? Some quick ones that come to mind: Genshin Impact, one of them. Wild Rift or Mobile Legends, one of the two. One of those two. Maybe even something like Pokemon Go. Another one of those, another free-to-play gacha game of your choosing. And you can see how the top 10 is all free-to-play games. And when it comes to developers in the Philippines, since our sort of like our main, since our demographic is heavily geared towards free-to-play games with microtransactions and also mobile gaming in general, the percentage of apps made by Filipino developers that use in-app purchases is higher than the world average. We have a 29% rate versus the world average of 20%. So that means on average, we have more microtransactions in our games than the world at large does. And the same goes for games that put ads in the game. So there's most likely a lot of mobile games. So that rate is 82% as opposed to the world average of 72%. So this is like a 9 to 10% difference. That's a lot of different games that are being made with these aspects compared to the rest of the world, right? And how are these games monetized in the Philippines? The first point is a little bit sort of like it's not directly related to the game itself, it's the developers themselves. These are sort of like player-run services. This is a way that people earn money using purely just the aspects of the game. So think of services where you buy gold in MMOs from other people for real money, stuff like that. It's like gold farming services, boosting services where you have somebody play your account in order to raise your rank. So like if you play Valorant, sometimes there are people who pay like a Radiant player to get their rank higher than what they can actually achieve on their own, right? So that's a thing that occurs in the Philippines. Maybe sad to say, I don't know. It's a living that people make these days, and sometimes you can't fault them for it. There's also more standard things. There's also more standard things like coaching. This is basically like tutoring. You pay somebody to teach you how to play the game. This is not directly related to the monetization of the game from the developer's perspective. In terms of gold farming, you can kind of think of it like sort of like these middlemen apps like Grab and Food Panda, where you pay somebody else to do something for you, right? So in video games, you pay somebody to farm gold for you. In real life, you pay somebody to go to McDonald's and get you a burger. It's like that. Another form is gambling in online games. The earlier forms of this were sort of like digital versions of already existing gambling games. So, you have like Tong It's Go, which is like an online version of Tong It's. You have like Bingo Plus, which is just bingo but online. So that's what those are. And then you also have like game tournament betting. You bet real money on esports. That's a thing that exists all over the world, and here too, I do believe. And in addition to that, as I mentioned before, a lot of these games in the Philippines are monetized with either microtransactions or ads. So those are the two big ones to keep in mind. In addition, I mentioned this, as I alluded to at the start, we're also going to be talking about play-to-earn games. This is a very, very complicated topic, especially when it comes to cryptocurrency-based games like Axie Infinity. So I'm going to go through this as well as best I can. So Axie Infinity is essentially like a Pokemon-style game where you assemble a team of Axies to fight other players, also with their team of Axies. Axie is short for Axolotl, if you were curious. And essentially, you play the game, you fight people, and you earn something called SOP. That's their in-game currency. and you use the in-game currency to further breed your axes, essentially creating new Pokemon, kind of, with different stats, sometimes better, etc. And the idea was that you can buy and sell the currency and the axes from other players. So like, let's say somebody has like an axis that you want for your team competition, you can buy it from them using like the cryptocurrency, which you would usually pay with real money, right? So it was sort of like a buy and sell thing. The thing that ended up happening, which was the cause of the failure of Axie Infinity, can be summed up basically as a lack of demand, right? Because what ended up happening is, because it was advertising itself as a play-to-earn model, where you play game and then you sell your SOP, you sell your axes, a lot of people came and did exactly that, right? So, okay, so you have a lot of people making SOP, making axes, and selling them, right? The thing is, there weren't enough people buying, right? There weren't enough people who wanted to just buy things without getting money back, right? Without selling. It became a problem where there was too much supply and not enough demand. There was too much SOP being generated, but not enough of it being used up and bought by other people, because SOP would be consumed if you breeded axes, and I think through some other mechanisms. So it could like get burned away, much in the way that if you buy food, the money is essentially gone because you eat the food, and you burn the energy that the food creates. So it's essentially like a way that the money sort of disappears out of the economy, right? So there was too much of the money being put into the economy and not enough of it being taken out. And because there's a finite amount of real money that's in the economy, the in-game currency eventually became worthless as a result. So if you couldn't you couldn't sell it for anything for a reasonable amount of money. So eventually, like, it became, people used to make a living playing that game, and then now they can't because the price of SLP essentially crashed. And so a lot of people even went into debt just trying to sustain, being able to play the game by buying SLP and axes, which is extremely tragic. The entire model was it's complicated to get into now, but the entire model was kind of doomed to failure because they were advertising as a play to earn venture and not as a pay for fun kind of deal, right? Like, you can definitely argue that you buy things from other players and stuff like MMOs, but you also just play the MMO and spend your gold on things other than investment. You do things in MMOs other than invest, essentially, right? That was the problem with Axie Infinity, that people were kind of like expecting to invest and get their money back. So people were always more people were trying to get money out of the system than people were trying to put money into it and get fun or enjoyment or accomplishment out of the system. So that's essentially what happened. It was a supply and demand problem caused by the game lacking a real reason to sink money into it. So with all of that kind of depressing stuff out of the way, what can we do about this? So these are the action points that I want you to note down. All right. So what can we do about this kind of thing? The main thing is to be very aware of this. That's kind of the reason we gave this talk. We have this talk in the entire point of in the first place, right? Is to help gamers and developers be informed about the forms of monetization, how they get exploited by publishers trying to milk every last penny out of players, and how we can sort of like be more responsible when we make these systems, when we interact with these systems. So first of all, on the player side of things, you should pay very close attention to your habits, right? To your gaming habits. What games do you like to play? What games do you enjoy? How much are you willing to pay in these games? Because there is nothing wrong with paying for stuff in video games, right? like I spend a lot of money on Valorant. I've spent a lot of money on Valorant skins. I have maybe a dozen skins that are. I have maybe like a dozen skins that I bought mostly at full price, right? So that's a lot of money. Skins in Valorant are not cheap, but uh, I feel that I feel personally that it is worth it. I feel personally that it's worth it because I play the game very regularly. Cope, yes, that is true. That it is a lot of money I'm never getting back, frankly. Yeah, but you know, it's fine to do that sort of thing if you feel that it's worth it. But you should really ask yourself if it's worth it. The new collection is this is the arcade bundle, right? I think this is the arcade bundle. Okay, I think I think it's probably consistent with their pricing model in general. Like their pricing model is egregious to begin with. That's the main problem, because I think the skin is essentially like 3 different knives in one. So that's why they bump up the price that much. It's got the pentagon symbol on it, right? The gold pentagon, I think. So that's why it's expensive. And like, I'm gonna be honest, the skins are a little mid. They're just saying they're a little mid, so I wouldn't buy them. But in terms of that, a lot of people are going to buy them, and I think it's dubious that they charge that much for the bundle. Although I can't say that I'm surprised, which is kind of sad to think about. And you know, in my opinion, I think the black market bundle was better. I bought the Vandal and the martial out of that one. So yes, be very aware of this, right? Be very aware of what games you like to play, and like consider if buying anything in it is even worth it. Like, I'll use another personal example for this one. I spent money on 2 games within sort of like the same genre, right? Action RPG. I spent money on Genshin Impact, and I spent money on Monster Hunter Rise. I bought the game. I bought Monster Hunter Rise twice actually. So I will tell you that I think my spending in Genshin Impact was not worth it compared to my spending in Monster Hunter Rise, right? And the thing is, I spent like maybe 3 to 4 times the amount in Monster Hunter Rise because I bought like 1 or 2 Welkins for Genshin Impact. That was it, right? That's like 500, I think. Is it 250 pesos per Welkin? So I bought 2 of those, right? And the thing is that eventually I found out that I actually don't like Genshin Impact. Like I played the game so much that it burned me out so badly that I've never thought about coming back. Like every time I think about coming back, it triggers a genuine like trauma response in my brain. It was that bad for me. I don't know how I survived that year. But Genshin Impact, I will likely never come back to unless like somebody really wants me to just help them with something, because I do have teams and stuff that are geared up enough to help with up to medium range content and stuff. But okay, so for Monster Hunter Rise, I bought the game twice, once on Nintendo Switch, once on PC, and then I bought one of the song packs for it. I bought the sort of like the legacy music pack. It has the music from some of the older games which I did play. And then I didn't buy the DLC, but somebody did gift it to me, so there's that. And like I think that was more worth it than Genshin Impact, because if you think about it, Genshin Impact could die tomorrow, right? If the servers are shut down tomorrow, that's it. That's the game. The game is now inaccessible, right? But something like Monster Hunter Rise is essentially available in perpetuity because it's a single player game. Right? The relevance of the expansion pack, is kind of like less important since they're cheaper. Since eventually if the game sort of like dies and it gets like a community revival, everything's gonna be free anyway because gamers want free shit. And like, so, paying for music packs is sort of like still technically wasted, but it's good while it lasts, right? And Capcom generally has a better track record of keeping their servers alive. I think as evidenced by the fact that Monster Hunter Generations still has its servers up, right? And so that's like that, right? Like, I liked MHRI's more, which is why I think I could have spent more money on it, which is why I spent more money on it, essentially. And yeah, in that, and in line with that, vote with your wallet. Buy things from developers that you think are doing things more ethically proper, right? With better sort of like morals in that sense, right? I bought a couple of Warframe things because I genuinely like the game, and because I support Digital Extreme's monetization, where they're more fair about it, stuff like that, like that. And as game devs, we have to keep in mind these sorts of things. We have to make sure that we're not accidentally or intentionally trying to milk our players for every last bit of money that we can get out of them. Because at the end of the day, we make games for players to enjoy. We make our games with our players in our mind because we want them to have fun. That's what games are about, having fun. So, this, if you're a developer, aspiring developer, just keep that in mind. It's about letting your players have fun. So, okay, let's just go over a quick summary of what we talked about. We've had a long history of monetization of games, and in fact, before monetization, games weren't even bought or sold. It used to be just a thing that you shared on a floppy disk with your coworker or your colleague in like a university, and you would just say, "Oh, look at this cool thing I coded for computers in the university computer room." It was just computer room with one computer in the entire room. And that used to just be how it was. You would share your games with just your friends and family. And that's how it used to be for a while until, production went up, money started coming in, etc., etc. And so the modern landscape necessitates that, they earn money. And where there is money, exploitation can follow, right? So we talked a lot about the different ways that monetization is exploited for profit. We have to be very aware of these things and what we can do to avoid it. And as a developer, don't forget to go back to the roots of game development, where when it used to just be dudes in their basement with a Commodore 64 making games for their friends to enjoy. Don't forget to make your games so that your players can enjoy them. And with that, that's the end of the talk. So I think we're going to the Q&A now. So okay, I think the Canva live code should have been sent in the chat, I believe. Somewhere, if you could just send it again, that would be great. There you go. So there it is. Enter the code 158158 at canva.live. And somebody's gonna read me the questions, right? Sorry. Hello? Mavi?
Oh, okay. Wait, hello.
Okay,
can
hello,
actually-
Lawrence.
Everyone can actually see the questions posted if you join the company. So you can actually view it yourself,
Oh, okay.
even.
One,
And there
five,
is
eight.
one question here right now.
Okay.
So we can allot some more time so people can bring in more questions.
Okay. Yeah. If you have any questions, send them into the Canva Live. It's on screen. It's not on screen. It's canva.live. Canva.live, and then enter the code 158158. This the code's outdated on the slide. Hold on, let me see if I can fix this. I unfortunately cannot fix this, I believe. If somebody could swap this on the slides real quick. The code is 158158. I repeat, 158158. There we go. It should be there on the slides now. Now let's see. Okay. In the Philippines, okay, I'm just gonna go from the top here and let's have a look at some of these. Okay, there's a couple of questions here about streaming. So it really depends. streaming is very volatile as a market because it's all about your image as a creator, right? It's about your image as a creator. It's about the content you produce. So it's hard to say. It might still be big in the future. I feel like it's still gonna be. I still feel like it's gonna maintain that its relevance that it has today and maybe grow more, maybe shrink a little, but it's more it's less about like, is it a good industry to get to as are you able to make it in the industry? It's very tough. It's kind of like a show business or acting. So okay, do you think that games that run an exploitative monetization tactics will eventually be phased out by the market into something better, be wiped out through regulation, or something else entirely? I feel that it's going to there's always going to be ways that developers and publishers try to exploit people for money, because that's simply kind of, especially with a lot of big publishers, that's simply what they kind of do. They kind of try to do because of the way the stock market works and stock prices go. So I feel that it's going to continue, unfortunately. And while regulations can help, they're often way too slow for this kind of thing. So I wouldn't rely on regulations. And I like to think about about like sort of like market forces like this. Think about how stupid the average person is, and realize that half of the population is stupider than that. So that's what I think. Like, it's unlikely that either of those two things will happen. I feel that it will continue, but if we make people more aware, we might be able to sort of mitigate the effects. I'm reading. Okay, I'm gonna read out the next question. In the Philippines, do you think game development is lucrative enough to turn into a career? At this moment, it's hard to say. As somebody sort of in the industry myself, it's not very well established in the Philippines at the moment. There are lots of acceleration programs and things like that you might want to look into if you're trying to do that kind of thing. But other than that, it's hard to say. That a lot of game developers start with mobile games in the Philippines, so you might want to look into that. If you're going to choose, will you rather pull for gacha or gamble? That's a weird question, but I'd rather go to a real gacha machine. If you know what I'm saying, because at least a real gacha machine, you get something that's useful or made of materials. Okay. Do you think a cosmetic style of monetization like Apex, Valorant, Fortnite would work for a free-to-play MMO? I do not know if you're talking about the Riot MMO, but they are hinting that it's just pay to look pretty instead of pay to win. This actually have a think. Okay, I kind of have like an anecdote for this, because Mabinogi is also pay to look pretty, kind of, in a different kind of way, where like a lot of the gachapons have good cosmetics in them, which I haven't spent money on it, but I have spent time to trade out for nice cosmetics. I have done that in Mabinogi. I might be getting old for this, but cosmetic monetization for a free-to-play MMO, I think, could still work. It depends on how they do it. In sort of tech and sort of like speaking terms, I think they could do it, but it's hard to say at this point, because a lot of MMOs always tend to have both, right? It's usually always, pay for resources and things, and you can also pay to look pretty, something like that. Yeah, like FF14 is, you can. I don't know what you pay for. Obviously, you pay for the expansion packs, but the main thing, what you can also pay for, is cosmetics. Yeah, like the mounts and stuff. The mount specifically is what you would pay for, I think. Devs selling games at full price, but DLC and stuff after a year with high price. Oh yeah, that's a very disturbing. Not disturbing. It's a very common trend, unfortunately, in large AAA games, especially. You mentioned Ubisoft. That's obviously a great example with the way that they monetize. Is it like a Far Cry? I think it was the later Far Cry games that they monetize like that, and also Assassin's Creed like that. Yeah. So it's an unfortunate trend. I understand like the concept of release of like post-release DLC being priced, but if it's highly priced and it's not worth the money, then obviously I don't condone that kind of thing. Okay, where hold on. Oh, there are a lot of these. There's a lot coming in. I'm going to go quickly over this question. What are your thoughts on the integrations of NFTs in video games? I think that the technology itself is too much in its infancy to say for sure. Like right now, the way it is, no, absolutely not. Like the chains are too slow, the gas fees are too high. It's simply not worth like the effort that it takes, and a lot of the times it just ends up trying to be like some kind of shady rug pull or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, what are my thoughts? My thoughts are no thanks. I'll just make my game the normal way. And like a lot of the things that they try to do is not really that special, right? You think about like ooh, you can have your item on the chain and it's like permanent, and you know what else is like, and like that's not even true. It's not even totally permanent because technically chains can fork, chains can move down, things can still happen to them, and like even if it is true, like we already do that. It's called Steam inventory, right? Like we already do those kinds of things. So it doesn't do anything new, and the things that it does, we already do, and it doesn't do them any better. So it's not something that I consider viable in this day, like currently. Okay. How do you support game developers if you do not purchase within the app? I guess like if they only make free to play games, I guess technically you don't, unless they have like ads, and just by playing the game, you sort of slightly support them with that. But if you mean like outside of giving the money, you can, if you promote their game,
or even go.
You can promote their games, bring them some word of mouth advertisement, stuff like that. It's little things that can help too. What? Oh God, I didn't think I'd see this name in like in this talk, but here we are. Am I familiar with the game Yandere Simulator? I'm very familiar with it. I used to follow its development, and then when I came back to like kind of look at it sometime later, I realized that it all went to hell, and the guy making it was a total nut job and a piece of crap. So what are my thoughts regarding its production? It was made by an amateur, right? That's the best way to sum it up. It was made by an amateur, and it was just not finished. It was not finished competently.
Which ones should I delete?
Somebody's unmuted. Hello?
Okay.
Or is that just me? I'm just hearing that. I think somebody's unmuted. Could somebody take care of that? Anyway. Or am I hearing that from the screen share? Maybe that might be coming from your screen share. Anyway,
I think it's from the screen share.
Okay, go ahead and take care of that. What do you think went wrong with this game's development? It was spearheaded by one guy who didn't know what he was doing, and he hyped it up way too much, and he made a lot of money unjustly. Well, not totally unjustly, but kind of unjustly. And what I think he should have done, he should have handed it off to TinyBuild when he had the chance. He should have handed it off to TinyBuild, frankly, because they know what they're doing, and they could have seen the game to its full completion with competency, rather than what happened in the end, which is get a half-baked demo that's crap, and everybody hates you, and you're a creep. And if he just laid low, he probably would have gotten a pretty fat paycheck by now, frankly. How can we as consumers and players topple abusive monetization from companies when most of their income comes from the whale minority? I actually have a very good anecdote, sort of like thing that I remember for this. And it's that when it comes to free-to-play games, remember, there's a saying that goes, if you're not paying for something, you are the product, right? If you're not paying for a product, you are the product, right? This applies mainly to stuff like social media platforms where they sell your data. But when it comes to stuff like MMOs and like maybe gacha games too, right? Like free-to-play players are like the sort of like the mooks, the random people that fill out the sort of like universe that allows whales to feel powerful, essentially, right? So if you like imagine this, like let's say there's like 100 whales and like 1,000 players, free-to-play players, and 100 whales in an MMO, right? These are not actual numbers, obviously, but like usually the proportion is like maybe 10 to 100, 1 to 100. And like imagine if all the free-to-play players just stop playing, right? Imagine Final Fantasy 14 without any of the trial players, without any of the players that didn't buy anything and just have a subscription, and without any of the players that didn't buy any expansion packs, right? How lifeless and empty is that? That's already happening with a lot of MMOs. Like even Mabinogi suffers from a population issue, right? And that's bad for business, because the whale players, like the whales, like their entire like a lot of the entire stick of having people whale is getting that sort of like ability to have the comparison, right? Because like if everyone's super, then no one is, right? That's like the way I like to see it, right? In free-to-play MMOs, the free-to-play players are essentially like NPCs, are essentially sort of like designed to kind of be like NPCs to these whales, right? And it's like that in like lots of other games, like like unusuals in TF2 are only cool because they're rare and you see hundreds of people without unusuals, right? If everybody had an unusual, it wouldn't be unusual anymore, right? That's like the way it works, because it's inherently about like the social experience. Do I think hard power creep in gacha games is a necessity for players to feel incentivized to roll in the banner? Ooh, yes, that's a good point. And what I say to that is only if your game is that boring. And what do I mean by that? And what by that I mean, if your game is only about like how much damage you deal and like how much bigger damage you can deal, like, and there's like no interesting variety in it in that sense, then you kind of only have the choice to put power creep in, because you have nothing else to entice your players to buy a new banner on, right? Because like think about it, there are lots of other games with sort of like randomized drops and stuff, right? Like you go to Monster Hunter Rise, the item drops in from monsters are randomized. You don't always get the new weapon on the first hunt, or on the second hunt, or the fifth hunt, or the 100th hunt, because you can't get a Raytheon mantle or Raytheon ruby from the monster, right? So like, but it's and sometimes the new weapons aren't even better than the old ones. But what people like is how they look, is how they feel, how they sound, right? People like those parts other than the damage they deal, right? So if you can have other reasons other than hard power creep if you have those systems built in. So think about like something like Genshin Impact, right? If you bring in a character that's not necessarily more powerful than the other characters, but has a really fun moveset, like really interesting synergies, and is overall fun to play, then people could roll on them anyway, because just because they're fun to play, their moves look flashy, that they feel meaty to use, stuff like that. What are your thoughts on the fact that gachas as a whole have been shaped by laws to hold them accountable, monkey gates, etc.? And do you think even more laws will come to address the issues people still have with them? My answer is maybe. It depends on like how much people sort of want them to be regulated, if that makes sense. Because as essentially they're just like a different form of gambling, and the way that gambling is regulated, you might be able to I think I would expect gacha games to end up in a similar position to casinos and gambling, where they're regulated up to a certain point, but other than that, it's about player discretion. How does the Philippine legislative system enter the scene in the game industry right now? I don't know if that it does, because I'm not sure that they're talking about stuff like that in the Senate or the House right now, as far as I can tell. I don't think it's become a large enough issue that that they want to do something about it, as far as I can tell. Do you believe that you would have enjoyed Genshin better or similar gacha games had you not spent money on it? I mean, I enjoyed Genshin Impact when I played it like the first time. I think the main thing that burned me out on it was because I played basically unreleased, right? I played a lot of it unreleased. I had adventure rank 54 within like the release of Liyue, essentially. So essentially, I kind of got burned out and sort of realized that I didn't like the RPG elements of it because they weren't that interesting to me. I didn't like the open world exploration aspect of it because it wasn't like the game. It's very obviously modeled after Breath of the Wild. Does it better? It doesn't do the exploration as well as Breath of the Wild, if you ask me. Like, and in general, I'm not big on open world games. I don't know if I mentioned that at all. I didn't, but I'm not big on open world games. Like, I finished. I finished two of them, exactly two of them, right? I finished Breath of the Wild and Dragon's Dogma, right? I never finished Skyrim. I never finished like any Far Cry games. I never finished an Assassin's Creed game, right? It's just not big on me, frankly. So Genshin Impact mainly had the combat to keep me in, and it wasn't interesting enough for me to stay in. But so when I eventually realized that, I kind of dropped the game entirely. The money spending part on it, I think it would have been nicer to be able to, like have more of the variety available to me. For free, but that's neither here nor there, since the sort of systems underlying weren't as interesting as I wanted it to be. Okay. Although I've encountered games that need lots of brand. Do you think majority will buy more VR games in the future, especially if it's gameplay similar to Monster Hunter or world building like Sims? VR games are a special sort of case because they require physical exertion on the gamer's part, which is not to say, like gamers are all neckbeards that can't stand up for 50 minutes, but like, it's not, I don't think it would be as easy to do like a 40-minute session of monster hunting in VR if you have to swing your arms around all the time. It's it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But I think in general they're geared more towards short play sessions, especially because a lot of people can sometimes have nausea from headsets. Yeah, Beat Saber players. Yeah, like Beat Saber is kind of designed to be played in short, sessions. Short song sessions, and you kind of rest between. But yeah, people play that for like streaming and like stream it for a long time. Crazy. I don't know how they do it. What are your thoughts on people pirating paid games that are exploitative? Do you think that it's an ethical way of avoiding the cycle of aggressive monetization? Here's the thing. Okay, I don't know if I should be saying this, but we've all pirated games at some point, right? Right? All of us. I don't want to get arrested here, right? So like, let's just say that all of us have, right? If you like a game that much and you like the developers like that much, legally I'm required to say no, obviously, right? Legally I'm going to say no. I will say no, do not pirate games, but in practice, if you pirate a game, if you like the game that much, you will just buy it later, especially if you like the developers, right? That's what you might do. Like if you can pirate for reasons other than like just wanting to play for free. You can pirate it as sort of like I don't really have the money now, but I kind of want to see what this game is about. If I like it, I'll buy it later. Something like that. You can do that. That's perfectly fine to do if you ask me, right? But if we're talking about like pirating things that have exploitative monetization, I mean, just look at how people feel about pirating Adobe products, and you'll be pretty much on the right track there. Okay, last question is freaking where is it? Star Rail? Are you sure you're not talking about Star Citizen? Oh, the new game from Holy. Okay, I see it now. Okay, don't you think that imposing a certain code of ethics for corporations so that they can no longer use advertising strategies to induce addiction isn't actually a responsibility for these corporations to take on themselves? Obviously, no. Corporations don't care about ethics most of the time, unless it's like medicine, and even then it's dubious. So, no, I don't expect any corporations to do that. I'm expecting individuals to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't. It's the way that like corporate ethics and work is not really in my field, so I don't have that much to say about it. But I don't expect like big corporations to change their ways anytime soon, simply because it's like it's too profitable, you know. And like nobody's stopping them, so they're just gonna keep doing it until somebody does. I don't know if the okay, I'm gonna read this next question. I don't know if the other Anon knows it, but the better example instead of Yandev could be Star Citizen. That game is the highest crowdfunded game and is still in development. It promised a lot of things that are still not in the game. That's a great example. A lot of that Star Citizen is another one of those perpetual early access games that I don't foresee being finished anytime in the future, simply because the scope is simply too large. So yeah, that's a good example of like early access kind of maybe probably going to fail. I'm not gonna say it's failed yet because it hasn't stopped development yet, so it could succeed maybe, but I don't know if it will. I don't think that it will. Rather, shouldn't companies enjoy the freedom of creating cash cow games without being branded as exploitative? If you can't afford the games, then you can't. Games for the consumer's experiences can't be exploitative because it's a want and not a need. I guess you're not wrong to be. I guess you're not wrong, but like, cash sort of like these cash cow games are like, it is still up to the consumer to decide whether they want to spend money in the game, but not every consumer has the sort of like mental awareness and fortitude to like afford to like know when they can't afford the game, because sometimes people don't know that they can't afford the game, if that makes any sense, where it's like you don't realize like how much you're spending on it, something like that. It's something like that. Obviously I'm not saying that like you never make these games or whatever. I'm saying that like please maybe don't for the sake of the players, please maybe don't. Yeah, but yeah, it's like saying not to fall for advertising. Yeah, it's like it's hard to say like, oh, it's all in the consumer's head, when like these lots of corporations and companies are vested in manipulating the brains of consumers to give them money, right? So like corporations will obviously do what corporations want unless they're stopped by regulation, but I would prefer that they don't do it. Yes, is that a good point to end? Is that a good point to make? Yeah, I would prefer that they don't make these cash cow games because they often exploit like bad biases in people. As gacha is similar to gambling, and teens usually play them more, should authorities treat gacha games like casinos and gatekeep the gacha aspect of a game? What are your thoughts? Like not you can have like a sort of a gacha system without the money involved, which is what I would say is the way that you would want to do it, is to have like randomized stuff, but like without getting people to pay money for it, right? So like in terms of like age restrictions on gambling, theoretically that could work, but we already have like age ratings and stuff for pretty much every other aspect of the game, and those are so poorly enforced that I don't think that's gonna help that much, right? I doubt that it's going to help that much if they do enforce it like that, because it's simply too hard to control. Would I be interested in playing the new game from Hoyoverse, Honkai Star Rail? When does it come out? Like, when does it come out? Star Rail release date. Tomorrow? Okay, it comes out 26, right? Unfortunately, Warframe: The Duviri Paradox also comes out tomorrow, so I think I'm gonna have to pass a little bit. I'll check it out. I'll have a look at it. I'll have a look at it. I haven't seen much of it, which is probably better for my experience. I prefer not to see games and get hyped up and stuff about like that, because it's usually just bad for. It's usually just not. It just makes the experience disappointing. Yeah, so it's tomorrow. Star Rail tomorrow, guys. Mark the date right now. So I think that's the last question that we're going to answer for this Q&A.
Nico, can you stream again?
Oh yes, of course. Hold on. Share screen.
And for those sa mga questions na hindi nyo na-enter sa Canva or hindi nasagot, feel free to message our Facebook page on Develop Diliman or our Twitter, which is Develop Diliman as well. Can you next slide?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Aha, and yes, it's the what you've been waiting for joke. It's the legendary certificate link. Yes, the word certificate link. So Lawrence, can you send rin yung link sa chat? And then for those viewing on YouTube, you can scan the QR code.
Oh, one last thing. I think I answered the question about NFTs earlier. What I answer is my personal opinion. Develop has an official stance. Is it on the Twitter somewhere, Matthew?
It's not on our official pages yet, but yeah, we might be posting our official stand soon.
Yeah, we'll have an official stance for that. Publicly available at some point. I think the gist of it is basically we don't like them, right? Is that it?
And it's not that's I think it's too basic to say that we don't like them, but we definitely do not support NFTs in video games. There's a lot more nuance to it. Yeah.
Okay, keep an eye out for the official stance if you're interested in what we have to say officially as an organization. That was
Yep.
what I said earlier. Is my personal opinion. If you have any beef, take it up with me.
And yeah, while you're answering the certificate link, real mag-selfie na kayo
Yes, you
With,
can go ahead and do that now. Yes.
with the YouTube stream or the
Zoom meeting open.
Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Cannot find the link. Oh, hold on. Mavi, Lawrence can't find the link or where do you
Oh
put it?
no.
It's under somewhere here.
Wait. Well, just kind of
Isan mo na lang, Mavi.
Yeah. I mean, you're just getting the QR code. I think what we need is yung link mismo para masend rin natin sa Zoom.
Oh, I did not. I don't think I sent that one. Oops. There you go. It should be there.
Alright. So, and since the link is finding the edit clue. Manti ka na. We're safe.
Okay.
Alright.
There you go. So the link should be in the Zoom chat right now.
Alright, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna share my screen. Yeah. Alright, so while you are answering to have your certificate, para makuha yung certificate mo, we naman on the develop side would like to present this certificate of appreciation to Nico Genuino for their valuable contribution as a speaker in the Price of Play Rampant Monetization in the gaming industry given this 25th day of April 2020. Alright, so yes, thank you Nico for agreeing to speak for this semester's upload. Do you have something to say?
Legally my first name is Nicola with an LO at the end.
Yeah, we're just using the Nico.
Yeah, don't worry about it anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, do I have anything to say? I think thank you for like just kind of believing it be in that way because like I don't give talks that often, but like I wanted to like help out because it seemed like you were having trouble with the speaker, so I'm just glad to have been able to help.
Yes. All right. And with that, all right. I think we can say na yes, Nico, can you share screen again?
Oh.
Before we end formally, yes.
Hold on. audience. There you go.
Next
Go.
slide. And as we said a while ago, right, we've been repeating it a lot of times. Feel free to approach us or message us on our socials if you have any questions. And before you do, can we, of course, take a picture with all of the attendees? It's really happy na ang raming umattend, and we're really glad to have you here. And kung possible, can you, if you can, please on your cameras for the picture. Lawrence, will you be able to take the pic? Or
Okay. Wait lang. I can't get the camera
Okay.
view right because of the
slide.
screen shared. Yes.
All right. Sige. I think we can stop share muna.
Okay. There you go.
There you go.
Also, I'm not myself visible right now. Wait.
Maraming marami tayong slides to go through kasi marami natin. Yes.
Yes.
Madon na kayo guys. Pero ayun, okay lang if hindi kaya. And ayun na, nadon na. And for those na nasa YouTube, hello.
Hello.
Sana nag-on cam kayo with us in spirit. Sorry, hindi na umabot yung Zoom limit. Maybe next year, sponsor nyo kami. Hanggang 100 lang kasi yung Zoom limit. Kaya we had to stream na to YouTube. Alright, I think marami na lang naka-on cam. Lawrence, can we take the photo na?
Okay. So, gallery view. How many pages? 4. Wait. So, 4 pages pero hanggang page 2 lang yung may cameras.
Alright.
I guess picturean ka lang yung mga screenshots, yung mga profile picture dito in spirit. Okay na
Alright,
siguro
go
yun.
lang.
Or, actually, pwede ka ayusin sa settings no para mas maraming kita. Saan ba yun? Ayun. More participants.
View gallery.
Yan. So,
Ikaw magbilang sa Zoom mo.
medyo matagalan to. Kasi, mga exactly 50 people. So, may isang, okay. Meron kasi isang tao na mag-isa lang siya dun sa second page. Pero mukhang okay na. May
Okay.
habol pa ba sa camera? Okay, meron, okay, okay, parang may humahabol pa. Tatlo na silang nasa second page.
Yeah, if you can turn on your cams, go ahead. By all means.
Meron pa ba? Okay, so mukhang okay na. Or pasabi lang sa chat kung tinatry nila mag-on ng camera pero ayaw gumana. Para, okay, otherwise, okay po, ano siya sabi, parang i-hold na lang yung ngiti nyo for mga 10 seconds. Okay, page 1, 1, 2, 3. Wala pala akong background. Tuloy lang. Page 2, kayong tatlo, 1, 2, 3. Okay, page 3, wala nang tao dito, pero mga picture nyo, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
All right. So before you leave, so thank you very much. Thank you for taking part in the photo. And actually, so after this in May, we'll be having another talk. So this is a talk done by Develop ever since last year. It's called the Local Game Development Talk. So here naman, it's a talk regarding wherein people from the industry, from the game dev industry, will give talks on their experiences as professionals within the industry. So if ever interested kayo doon, we would be really happy to see you again to participate in that webinar of ours. So hindi na siya Applet, it's different. That's solely a developed thing, pero we really hope to see you there. And who knows, aside from that, we hope to see some of you in the org next year. Yes, it's like Boodle. So, ayun, if you're interested, follow nyo rin kami sa Twitter, like our Facebook page, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And reiterate ko lang ulit na, ayun nga, we'll be having another webinar this May. So, follow our socials, and this webinar will all be about professionals in the game dev industry, and this will be perfect for those na looking na what is game dev all about, and especially if you're just interested in knowing what it is like to be a professional in this industry. So don't be afraid if you think na kailangan you know something about game dev, kasi this is something na that's open for everyone as long as interested kind of you. So ayun, yeah, that was a bit of a lot before ending. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Develop Team. Thank you, Akla Team. And thank you for all the attendees, and to the people on YouTube. Hello, ulit. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you again next time. Or see you around campus, Ren. Bye-bye. Right. Yay. Wala naman. Ayun na, 12 na lang pala tayo dito.
I think these last fellows have forgotten their computer.
Ayan, wala. Ay, mag-meet na ako sa Zoom. Thank you po everyone.
Yeah, yes, you can. You can all leave now.